She laughed at the challenge, but it wasn't funny. Some games make you smile, others make you regret. It was one of those dares that starts as a joke, something to break the monotony of a quiet evening. A simple challenge, tossed out with a smirk under the dim lights of a basement rec room. But as the minutes ticked by, the laughter that filled the space began to feel different. It wasn't just a game anymore. It was something else entirely. What starts as a silly dare can spiral into a nightmare you can't wake up from. Tonight, we're re-exploring a story that serves as a chilling reminder that some challenges come with stakes far higher than just winning or losing. It was a Saturday night, one of those lazy, hazy evenings where time seems to stretch and blur. 4 friends, bored and looking for a thrill, were gathered in Sarah's basement. The air was thick with the smell of old books and stale popcorn. Someone, maybe it was Mark, always the instigator, came up with the idea. "I bet you can't laugh for 10 minutes straight," he said, pointing a finger at Sarah. The others chimed in, goading her on. "Yeah, no way. You'll run out of breath." The challenge was set. Laugh or lose. Sarah, never one to back down from a dare, just scoffed. "Easy," she declared, a confident grin spreading across her face. She took a deep breath, and then it began. A small giggle at first, then a hearty chuckle, blooming into a full-throated laugh. Her friends laughed with her at first. But as the first minute passed, then the second, their own amusement faded. The room grew silent, except for Sarah. Her laughter echoed off the wood-paneled walls, loud and unwavering. It was impressive, almost unnerving. But the game had just begun, and the silence from her friends was the first sign that something was terribly wrong. The challenge was simple. Don't stop laughing for 10 whole minutes. At first, Sarah thought about funny movies, inside jokes, anything to keep the sound flowing. Her initial laughter was genuine, fueled by the absurdity of the situation. But as she passed the 3-minute mark, it became a conscious effort, a performance. Her friends watched, their faces unreadable in the dim light. The only other movement in the room was her own shadow, thrown against the wall by a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. It danced as she rocked back and forth with laughter. But then something strange happened. As her own energy started to wane, her shadow seemed to become more animated. When she took a shallow breath, her shadow's shoulders seemed to shake with a deeper, more robust laugh. It was a trick of the light, she told herself, a flicker of the bulb. She couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't laughing alone. Her laughter echoed too long. Her shadow laughed back. It mimicked her every move, but with an unsettling exaggeration, its dark form contorting in silent, manic glee. The game wasn't just about endurance anymore. She was in a duet with her own darkness. A cold dread began to creep up her spine, chilling her far more than the damp basement air. The laughter felt foreign in her own throat now, a harsh, grating sound that no longer belonged to her. She tried to catch her friend's eyes, to send a silent plea for help, but they just stared, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning fear. Through her forced, rattling breaths, she managed to whisper, "This isn't funny." The words were barely audible over her own relentless cackling. But in the silence that followed her desperate plea, another voice seemed to answer. It was a whisper, a dry, rasping sound that seemed to come from the wall right behind her. It said, "It's my turn now." Her friend's eyes widened. They heard it too. Sarah's gaze snapped to her shadow. It was no longer just mimicking her. It was still, its head tilted as if listening, waiting. And she knew, with a certainty that froze her blood, where the whisper had come from. Her shadow, her silent partner in this game, had just spoken, and it was ready to take the lead. Panic seized her, a primal, suffocating fear. She had to stop. She bit her lip, clenched her jaw, tried to swallow the sound that was clawing its way out of her throat. But the laughter continued, pouring out of her against her will. It was her voice, but it wasn't her command. It was stronger now, louder, more maniacal than ever. Her own body had become a prison, and this monstrous laughter was the warden. Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the sweat on her brow. Her voice cracked, breaking under the strain. But the sound didn't falter. It just changed, becoming higher, sharper, more unhinged. She looked at her friends, their faces pale masks of horror. They weren't just confused anymore, they were terrified. They started backing away, stumbling over each other to get to the stairs, and as they screamed, Sarah looked back at the wall. Her shadow was no longer just a flat, dark shape. It seemed to have depth, to be pulling away from the wall. And on its featureless face, a wide, predatory smile was spreading. It was in that moment of pure terror, as her friend's screams faded up the stairs and the basement door slammed shut, that she finally understood. The horrifying realization hit her like a physical blow. The challenge wasn't about laughter. It was never about whether she could laugh for 10 minutes. That was just the invitation. The real game was about control. It was a test of will. By agreeing to the dare, she had opened a door, surrendering a piece of her own autonomy for the sake of a silly game. And something had been waiting on the other side. This entity, this shadow self, had waited for her to weaken, for her control to slip. Her laughter had been the key that unlocked its cage. And now it was free. The laughter finally subsided, not because she willed it, but because it chose to stop. In the ringing silence, the whisper came again, right beside her ear, cold and triumphant. You lost. She was alone in the dark, with a smiling shadow that was no longer her own. She laughed at the challenge, but it wasn't funny. We tell ourselves these are just stories, urban legends passed around for a cheap thrill. Maybe this was just a prank. Maybe her friends were in on it. Maybe it was a hallucination brought on by hyperventilation and a suggestible mind. Maybe, but maybe not. Some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Some challenges should never be accepted. The story of Sarah is a stark reminder that the line between our world and another can sometimes be as thin as a shadow on a wall. What do you think happened in that basement? Let me know your theories in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy diving into mysteries that linger long after the screen goes dark, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. You never know what we'll uncover next.